Hey, Michael. There were several points that you mentioned that I wanted to hit, but one of the for one, Black Mirror is a great show. I've seen a lot of the episodes, um, and I think it's there's a lot of parallels between, even though Black Mirror is, like you were saying, fantastical and a little far fetched. A lot of it is actually kind of realistic in the sense that we're constantly under surveillance, and all of our actions, especially online, are being monitored. Whether it's something as simple as what we're searching for, or it's all data that's being stored somewhere. And you mentioned online only apps and app features, which I just recently went on a trip to Colorado. Excuse me. I flew to Colorado, or I flew to Atlanta and then to Denver, and then I drove from Denver to Steamboat Springs, Colorado, which is a small town. My uncle was getting married. It was super fun, but it was about a 3.5 hour drive, and a lot of that is in the mountains, and you lose service a lot. And I wasn't driving, so I was the one. I mean, I'm just browsing on my phone, and you get pretty creative when you don't have internet service. I have a lot of pictures on my phone, but I've cycled through all my just. So pretty much, I was, prior to going into the trip on the way back, since I knew that we were going to be driving for 3.5 hours, I was looking for apps that were offline apps, essentially. And most of those are games and whatnot, which I'm not huge into games on my phone, but just to pass the time. And what I noticed was that a lot of the games have offline features, but if you want to get any sort of content or update anything, like you were saying, you have to have an internet connection. So a lot of, even the apps, like there were several games, I don't remember the names of them, but that I downloaded that appeared to be offline apps. And honestly, the functionality of the game itself, you wouldn't think would need any sort of internet connection. But of course, to register with whatever engine is running the game, and to buy new items within the game, or if you one trend is, if you run out of currency, whatever currency is used in that game, if you run out of currency, there's a way to, you can pay to play, where you can actually buy with real money, buy more currency. And of course, to do that, you have to have an internet connection. But I mentioned in a separate post that I've recently gotten into software prior to this course, and I've been learning pretty hardcore for about 4.5 months. And there's a lot to app development, web development, software in general. But I listened to a lot of podcasts, and one of the topics that was discussed in the podcast I listened to a couple days ago, actually, was building like progressive web apps that are focused on, one, being accessible, not in the same sense that you used it, which is more, you used it more along the lines of having access to the internet, which of course that does fall under the definition of accessibility. But to make an application or a website accessible means to essentially make it a level playing field for everyone, meaning cross-browser, like being a compatible application or site on all browsers, which, granted, I would assume most people in our generation are using either Chrome or Firefox, but there are still older people that are using Internet Explorer, and God forbid Internet Explorer like 8 or 9, like really old versions of Internet Explorer. And not only that, but you have to make applications that are accessible to people who have disabilities, whether it be color blindness or just being blind in general. There are like different kinds of like if you're on a web page and say that I'm blind, if I'm scrolling down, I just spit on my screen a little bit. Excuse me. If you're scrolling down and you obviously don't have any visual cue, considering there are like auditory responses that you can get that'll kind of dictate where you're at on a page. Things like that are a lot of things that developers, especially me being so young in the field of like development, don't even think about, but it's something that really comes into play, especially if you're trying to make anything that's scalable, or anything that you're going to try to make a profit from, because of course you don't want to like cut anyone out or discriminate against anyone. Not that you would do it intentionally, but anyway, I'm kind of rambling now. And you mentioned having a new streamlined way of having satellites to get internet to places where it can't necessarily get to. And I immediately thought of, third world countries or African countries that that don't have access to internet simply because there aren't polls and whatnot. I think that could do a lot of justice for that type of situation. Granted, the actual technology itself that would be required for that is beyond me, but I certainly see that could be a huge benefit. But yeah.